We made it through another hectic week in the NHL with lots to talk about at the end of this week, including a look under the hood into our fantasy hockey listener leagues on the Friday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, trade analysis, who's on top, and our Friday big time bets. Thank you for joining us. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the lab, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the Friday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Steele, it's Friday. We're feeling good. The global series, the first game yesterday was a juicy one. I think we're on tap for a good one this afternoon between the Leafs and Red Wings. We got some bets coming up for that later in the show. I got a same game parlay ready to go for that afternoon affair between the Red Wings and Maple Leafs. We'll get to that at the end of the show, but today's episode, it's going to be short and sweet, my friends, but Steele and I haven't spoken about our listener leagues very much. We got two of them going. We got a lot of GMs. We got a lot of players in the mix. Steele and I off to a bit of a rough start overall. We're going to have a look under the hood, who's on top. We're also going to break down a very juicy fantasy hockey trade involving 5 pieces, 3 one way, 2 the other. Auston Matthews involved. We'll break that down because I think, Steele, by looking at some of these situations, some of these players on our teams that we're happy with, that we're upset with, maybe some of the moves we've made are really going to help some fantasy GMs out there see what's going on early in this season. So I want to turn it over to you. How are you doing? How are you feeling? We're in 2 different leagues, right? Higher buy-in in one than the other, but there's nothing casual about our casual league either, because straight up and down, shout out to all the GMs out there and all of our listeners and fans who have showed interest in these leagues the last few years, because it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, and I've been trying to hold off on this conversation for a long time because I have been going through a grind right now in this casual fantasy hockey league with our listeners. Week 6 matchups. I am at the bottom of the barrel right now with a 15-33-12 record, dead last in the league, dead last in my division. I'm doing pretty decent so far in this weekly matchup. I'm up 7-3 right now against the top team in your division, actually. But honestly, it's just been a whirlwind of a start for fantasy hockey this season for me. I'm pretty much at the bottom of every single league except for one where I'm at the top right now. Okay. But more specifically, it's because I've bought into a lot of players who have just had really poor starts to the season so far.
There you go.
And again, it's just been such a brutal start. Like Patrick Laine, who's only got 3 points. I know he was injured for a little bit, but he hasn't got going yet. Columbus has been struggling. Carter Verhaeghe started very poorly, but he's bounced back the last week and a half. Lucas Raymond was a little bit iffy to start the season. My defensemen haven't been great. Zach Hyman's finally got going now that Edmonton's back on track and won 3 in a row. And again, I've bought into a lot of players throughout those 4 fantasy leagues that I'm in. And one of those players being Stuart Skinner. And one thing that I'm noticing right now in a lot of the leagues that I'm in is obviously we've talked about waiting to draft goaltenders, waiting past the 4th round. But if you're at the bottom of the barrel in goalie categories, that really does hurt your fantasy chances on a week-to-week basis, because that's 4 categories right there: wins, shutouts, goals against average, and save percentage. And if your goalies aren't producing and playing at the best of their capability, then that's automatically 4 categories you're down right there if you're going up against a team that's got really great goaltenders. So for me, I've bought into a couple of players that just haven't panned out so far in this casual league. I'm hoping for a little bit of turnaround. And again, if I can get a big win against the top team in this league, that would be a huge bonus right now, heading in the right direction.
I really like that you started out talking about the goaltending strategy because, look, I understand that waiting for a goalie, waiting rounds, that really can work out, but that leaves you to have to then potentially get lucky with who you're taking at the back end of the draft. And I'd rather get lucky with going week to week picking up players because if
Yeah.
your goaltending doesn't pan out in the draft, it's a lot harder, Steele. We both know this, to hit the waiver wire and find a goaltender to fill in. You got lucky and made a really good trade and address your goaltending in Linus Ullmark, getting him at the beginning of the season. Genius move that's panned out for you. But I would rather go that route of trying to juggle my forward lineup and waiting for forwards and waiting for goalies. Case in point, in this casual league, Steele, Ilya Sorokin and Aiden Hill are my two goaltenders. The strongest part of my team, both goalies putting up good numbers to start the year. The Islanders, obviously, up and down. A couple of other players that I've liked that I've picked up. Matty Nye's picking up steam. Travis Sanheim has 15 points. I picked him up off the waiver wire. But then on the other end, players that I was really expecting big seasons from. Keandre Miller off to a bit of a slow start. Darnell Nurse off to a slow start. Nazem Kadri basically insignificant up until the past week or so. I don't want to drop Nas, and this is what I wanted to talk about very quickly before we get to that potential trade right after the break. We'll break down the trade. We'll break down our competitive league as well, Steele, and of course, big time bets. But just lastly here is, I picked up Jordan Kyrou the other day, and he's been working on rounding in his game, and I understand that he can go pointless, but 3 goals, 3 assists in the last 5. He's picking up some steam. I love Jordan Kyrou's ability, but at the end of the day, what I was just trying to say is, I said it on yesterday's episode. Don't get complacent with your team. We've talked all about the waiver wire being your friend. We've talked all about GMs that win their league are the ones with their finger on the pulse. Set yourself a reminder on your phone, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes a day. Check in on your squad every single day. That's how you get a leg up, Steele. And I know you and I, by the way, I just wanted to bring up my stats because I'm really not trying to preach at you at all because I'm not exactly sitting pretty either. In our casual league right now, I'm sitting in 9th in our division. Sorry, 1, 2, you don't need the numbers. I'm sitting 6th in our division, 9th overall out of 16. Not too bad. 27, 29, and 4. I'm only 5 wins back of first in my division. Not giving up hope, not even close, Steele, but I am heavy on the waiver wire, and I'm intrigued to break down this trade. If you're good, we'll go to break and come right back, talk about that trade if you're good with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, as well, is like you said, don't get complacent with these teams, and that's what happened right now with this big monster trade in the casual league. Is the guy in second last right now, Suitcase Sillinger. I just played him last week, ended up winning 7-3-2, but he was not trying to stay complacent anymore, and he actually sent a message in the group chat saying, "I am open to shipping off Auston Matthews." So he's looking for a little bit of a change. He's looking for a little bit of change, and he ended up facilitating a trade that we're going to get into very shortly.
Yes, we will. We're going to talk about it right around the break, ending the show, of course, with our big-time bets. I'm hype for this Friday afternoon action, Steele. I think it's going to be a good one that you need to check out. Game Time. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You never want to have a frustrating ticket buying experience when you're going for your favorite event, comedy, sports, theater, otherwise. That's why you need Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets for your next big event, and you don't with Game Time. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats, exclusive flash deals, sponsored deals on tickets for football, baseball, basketball, concerts, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Steele and I are loving the Game Time app, especially for, of course, hockey tickets, baby. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Remember, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, your podcast every single day. Thank you so much for joining us. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, and a 5-star review.
Please.
Flip, we are going to get over to the competitive league very, very shortly,
Yes,
but we
we
do
are.
have to break down this monster trade, like we just mentioned. Second last place team, Suitcase Sillinger, opening the market with Auston Matthews, looking for a little bit of a change with these categories that he's not used to playing. And again, sometimes in different situations, when you join different leagues that you're not used to, you're not really sure how to draft. And I think this might be the case for him. And again, like we just said, Auston Matthews is off his team. He has traded Auston Matthews. It was a 2 for 3, I believe. And we'll get this graphic up right now for the people on YouTube. He traded away Auston Matthews and Filip Gustavsson of the Minnesota Wild. And in return got Jacob Markstrom, Roman Josi, and Timo Meier. So a little bit of a different look. He's obviously boosting up his peripheral categories with both Roman Josi and Timo Meier. I think he's taking a little bit of a shot here with Jacob Markstrom, but honestly, Filip Gustavsson hasn't been any better of recently as well so far this season. But of course, you're giving up that top piece in Auston Matthews. And like you just saw, 13 goals, 6 assists for 19 points total on the season, 60 plus shots, 20 plus hits for Auston Matthews. He is a 200-foot player. He does it on both ends of the ice, and he's doing it all over in every single category.
Most definitely. This is one of those trades, Steele. When I look at it deeper than my first glance. I kind of start to like the 3-piece that this other GM got. Roman Josi, obviously, you're getting a very balanced package here, but I can't help but feel the true winner of any deal is the side that gets the best player. And in this one, that's Auston Matthews, and it's Auston Matthews by a long shot. So I got to go with the fact. And also, let's remember, Filip Gustavsson, I understand, 2-4-1 this year, 4.64 goals against, 872 save percentage. It is a huge disappointment, not only from the expectations, but also from what we've come to expect during this guy's career. Small sample size in the NHL, 68 games started, but a beauty set of numbers coming into this year, 917 save percentage and others. I think right now, Auston Matthews for sure, that's the piece, that's the star of this deal. But I'll say this, if Filip Gustavsson can even figure it out a little bit, to me, this becomes a landslide win because we don't know what's going on with Calgary. The New Jersey Devils and Timo Meier have had their struggles, and Roman Josi is getting up there in age. So if this was Keeper Dynasty Steele, for sure, 10 out of 10, Gustavsson and Matthews wins it, but I think even in year to year, I'm leaning towards the Matthews side of this just because of how good he's been so far.
He's been so stellar for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And again, if Filip Gustavsson, like you said, can kind of turn things around and get his head on straight for the Minnesota Wild.
Which I think he will do, Steele, by the way.
I think he will too, but it's just been one of those years for him, or at least for the first month and a half. But let's get over to the competitive league, talk about those our two teams in this other league that we've got with our listeners out there. And it's pretty much the same as the rest of the same as what's going on for me in the casual league as well. Let's bring up the standings right now. I am sitting in second last in my division, 13th overall, 22, 32, and 6 record so far. And it's more of the same. It's just buying into a lot of those players that just have not been producing whatsoever so far this season. Again, I talked about Anders Lee, who I'm at the point right now. I'm only holding him for those peripherals because I need them. But I'm at the point with him. He's about to get dropped. Only 2 points so far this season. Same goes for Johnny Gaudreau. Only 1 goal in 15-plus games. Only 6 points total. Has 38 shots, which is not enough for him. I just dropped Jake DeBrusk because he's not getting it done. And again, like you said with Nazem Kadri, I've got Nazem Kadri in this league. I took a chance on him. I took a chance on Noah Hannafin. I took a chance on Neil Pionk. I'm really hoping now that Edmonton, gets their new coach. They're kind of readjusting their entire season now. I've got Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman. They both had a big night the other day in that overtime win against the Seattle Kraken in overtime. And again, now that I had the first overall pick, and when you draft Connor McDavid, you really do see yourself being a first place team in this league, and it just hasn't panned out that way for me. The only good thing so far for me it was making that trade for Linus Ullmark for Tyler Toffoli. So that's the upside right now. But I'm, again, really hoping this team will turn around. I'm actually up right now in my weekly matchup, again, against the top team right now, winning 7-2.
You alluded to when you were talking about our casual league about Stuart Skinner and that being a bit of an up and down situation, obviously in general. But hey, take a look at the kid over the last 3 games, Steele. Goals against average, 1. Goals against average, 1. 2.9. Beauty numbers, 3 straight wins. I think the come up is real for Stuart Skinner. Why? The rest of the team has been garbage. You can't expect a second-year goalie to carry you. This isn't Dominic Hasek. This isn't a Hall of Fame stellar kind of career. I think we're in shape for Stuart Skinner. He's a serviceable number 1 NHL goaltender when the team in Edmonton is playing their game, and now they're starting to. And I think if you were giving up on Stuart Skinner, it was the wrong time because the come up is going to be very real for this Edmonton Oilers team. I don't think I'm ready to say that that's going to happen with this Calgary Flames situation and Jacob Markstrom, however, Steele. But just very quickly, I wanted to bring up the best pick on my team was my first pick of the draft, and that was Mikko Rantanen. And this guy just needs a little bit of love. 10 goals, 11 assists. The Colorado Avalanche put up an 8-piece the other night. I forget who that was again. Oh, the Ducks. Hanging 8-piece on the Ducks. My bad, Lucas Dostal. Thanks a lot for that one. 8 goals against. Appreciate that, bud. Anyway, what's more important here is Mikko Rantanen has established himself as one of the elite offensive pieces in the game. And not only do I love the unis that they're rocking here in this graphic on YouTube, by the way, make sure you smash that subscribe on YouTube and head over and check out these fire graphics. 64 shots on net, 11 assists, 10 goals. He's an absolute offensive juggernaut, Steele. I really love this guy's game. 3 game-winning goals, 12 penalty minutes as well. 10 hits, 8 block shots. Yeah, you're not drafting him, of course, for those peripherals. But if my man's putting up elite offensive numbers and still coming with a couple of PIMs, hits, and blocks, I'm ready to say next year, if he continues this production, Steele, he's a top 15 fantasy piece, in my opinion, and he's really starting to prove it in a very, very big way.
First rounder, no questions asked. Mikko Rantanen, we've talked about this so many times that he's up there or probably the most underrated player as well.
Kyle Connor, Rantanen, they're
Kyle
up there.
Connor's been an absolute stud so far. He's been feeling himself the last week, but those 2 players for sure have been very underrated over the last couple of seasons, not appreciated enough for what they do for their hockey clubs. Before we move on, though, to big time bets, I do want to get this out there, this potential trade offer, actually the trade offer that has been thrown my way from Dubs Only, who has been getting a fair amount of dubs this season. He offered me Teuvo Teravainen, Vince Dunn, and Elvis Merzlikins for Linus Ullmark. And at first glance, very interesting trade, but I can't pull the trigger just yet. And I probably won't pull the trigger on this one just because I can't afford to lose Linus Ullmark, because I can't afford to have Elvis Merzlikins and Devin Levi as my 2 goaltenders right now. So for those reasons, I wasn't able to accept the trade. However, I was looking at a counter offer potentially, and I was going to surround it. I was going to surround it around Connor Bedard and Vince Dunn for Linus Ullmark. So that could be a potential offer that Dubs Only sees coming his way very, very soon. But it's a very interesting trade, but unfortunately I can't accept it because I can't rely on Devin Levi, who's been very disappointing this season.
One of the most, the most fun things about fantasy hockey, in my opinion, Steele, is bargaining. It's dealing, bartering with your fellow GMs in your league. Look, I have been the victim of having a couple of, what I like to do at night, Steele, with hockey, a couple of wobbly pops. And you're starting to think you're Bill Guerin out here wheeling and dealing. Maybe don't do that is what my suggestion is. Sleep on it. Never just accept the deal right away. You never accept the first offer in life in anything, in my opinion. That's a really good rule of thumb that I really do follow when it comes to fantasy hockey. That trade, though, Merzlikins, I know at times he shows flashes of brilliance. You cannot give up on Linus Ullmark. You can't give up on Linus Ullmark, especially if your backup is Devin Levi. I'm loving these takes, Steele. I'm going to be loving these bets in a second. And oh boy, I'm hyped for Monday's waiver wire episode. So make sure y'all tune in for that as well.
Very excited about this flip triple dip because I too also have a same game parlay, probably from the same game as well. We're going to get to those big time bets very, very shortly. But this episode is also brought to you by Jace Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. And that's why we want to talk about Jace Medical, which offers the Jace case. The Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you that peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure that you have the medication on hand, and it's very simple to do. You go online, you fill out the form, then you get prescription life-saving medications right to your doorstep. The Jace case gives you that peace of mind that you need in those emergencies. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. It's absolutely amazing what they do. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code locked on at checkout. That's on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Promo code locked on for an additional $20 off at checkout. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit that subscribe, leave a follow, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us every single day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So thank you all for that. And we're going to return that favor. Flip and I are perfect 3 for 3 the other night. We're looking for another night and another big night Friday. I'm going to throw it over to you, though, because I think we do have probably at least 2 of the same picks here, probably from the same game. You said you had a same game parlay. I have a same game parlay. So kick us off, Flip. Do what you do best. Big time bets. Here we go.
Hey, look, we've been on a heater, and, sometimes I see people saying, oh, you guys bet a lot of favorites. Sue us. I'm trying to feed you guys winners. It's up to you guys to discern what you do with the odds and what you do with your bets. We're not here to tell you what to do. What we're here to do is try and show you some spots that we're really liking from a hockey and a fantasy angle that are going to pan out for winners. And that's what we've been doing, Steele. You're on a heater. I'm up to 54 and 36 on the year, 18 and 8 with the locks of the night, and I'm going to try and keep it rolling. These Global Series games are always hard to handicap, but I'm not going over to Stockholm for a big-time matchup between the Red Wings and Toronto Maple Leafs without getting a little action on it, okay? Friday afternoon, Mans might be taking the afternoon off, Steele. Wobbly Pop season starting early for the holiday.
Drinking the Kool-Aid.
Thank you. Maple Leafs, money line. This is a same-game parlay. The Detroit Red Wings blew it Thursday night, Steele. Ottawa came all the way back there, 5-4, won it in overtime. Back-to-back after traveling a week overseas. That's a really tough spot for anybody. I think it's going to be James Reimer in the cage, Steele, who has actually been really good. I like the little angle against his old team, so I'm also going to the under in this spot because Detroit played last night. This is a coin flip spot. I could see under, I could see over. My gut is under. I'm going under minus 128 along with the Maple Leafs at minus 165. And my favorite angle here, William Nylander is on a game point streak, Steele. He's leading the team in scoring. He also leads the league in shots on net this year with 70. So hit me with Willie Nylander anytime goal on top of those 2 other picks as my same game parlay. It's going to be some nice odds. Hammer it. I'm really liking those 3. And we're loving those FanDuel same game parlays.
Absolutely love 2 out of the 3 of those picks. We're going to have our third side bet action.
Over-under? Is it the over-under?
It's the over-under in this situation. Like you said, it is a coin cost. It is a flip right now. No pun intended right there for you. But I also have the Maple Leafs on the money line against the Red Wings. Like you said, it's a back-to-back. They're without Ville Husso as he returned back to North America to be with his wife for the I believe their first child, actually. So congratulations to Ville Husso. Alex Lyon will be in the crease for the Red Wings.
There you go.
So Maple Leafs money line is the lock of the night. I'm taking the Red Wings Leafs over 6.5. Like you said, it's really hard decision. Like when you look at the last 10 games, it has gone back and forth under and over. But I think Willie Nylander is going to put on a show. Auston Matthews is going to put on a show. John Tavares is going to put on a show. And I don't know if you read this or not, but I believe Nylander had to buy 80 to 100 tickets for family and friends to come watch this game. Yeah, I believe it's his grandma is actually going to be able to watch him live for the first time ever. He's going to put on a show, Steele.
Let's double down on that angle.
Nylander over 1.5 points in this matchup. He is going to have an absolute blast, have the time of his life.
I agree.
Being able to play at home in front of his friends and family. So we've got the same action here. We've got our third side bet of the year so far.
Yes.
But those are the same game parlays, and those are 3 big time bets.
Hey, Steele, I'm loving these global games. That was a good one. 5-4 for the Ottawa Senators. My
Yeah.
boy Drake Batherson. I think he had a 3-piece of assists. I love me that action. But anyway, this is one of those fun little afternoons for hockey fans to sink our teeth into. Friday afternoon action, you can't beat it.
Can't beat it whatsoever. And we're going to get all of that throughout the weekend, as well as all those 4 teams, like you mentioned, Red Wings, Senators, Maple Leafs, and Wild are in Sweden across the pond. They're doing those things doing their thing in the global series. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. And again, you got to go check out Locked On. They have launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering all the top sports stories of the day with all of our local experts from Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So go to the Locked On Sports Today, to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.